Hey there, Hopeful Tribe. Have you ever thought about quitting sugar? Well, today we're going to talk about our keto journey and how difficult it was to quit sugar, how hard it is to stay on keto, and how hard it was to give up carbs.
Cool. Way cool. You want to be the interviewee first?
Sure, that sounds good.
Okay. How hard was it to quit sugar?
I had to kind of figure out what sugars were in my diet. So I hadn't considered before that time we went keto, that a lot of the carb things, the breads and things that I had were actually sugar. So it wasn't very hard to think about don't add sugar to things. But when I started reading labels and how many things they put sugar in, and deciding that I had to either find alternatives for those things or maybe not have those things, it was tough. However, you were doing most of the cooking initially, yeah? And also even getting the ingredients. And so, I was helping with reading labels or whatever, but since Sue was taking charge of that, I wasn't having to focus on how much sugar was in certain things. I just had to sort of change my taste buds, which they sort of started to change the longer we continue with keto. Now, the hardest thing for me to give up putting sugar in was my tea in the morning. And we went through a lot of different things. And I just sort of baby stepped my way there. I think we went to honey, which is still sugar, and
then coconut
sugar, which is still sugar. Sue at that time was using stevia in most things, and I wasn't digging the flavor of stevia in my tea. But then, as we started cutting out the sugar and the carbs from the rest of my diet, it became easier and easier. And I started to realize what an addiction it was. After a certain point, it wasn't calling to me anymore. I wasn't kind of craving sugar. And then I got to the point where now I actually like stevia in my tea. And sometimes I can even take it black, take it without sweetener, still with a little cream. So yeah, it was difficult at first to figure out all the things you have to give up if you're giving up sugar. Then once I got into it and was doing it, my body was no longer craving it. And now it's really amazing to say that we've been a long time. How long have we been without sugar? Over a year, right?
Yeah, I think it's been a year and a half.
Yeah, a year and a half. And well, I think we've talked about this before, but a game changer for us really was not having cheat days with it. Not it's the weekend, we can go get regular ice cream or something, because then it was in your system again, because we were addicted to it. And so once we got it out of our system and said, even on birthdays and holidays and whatever, we're just going to figure out a sugar-free alternative, and we were not using any of that aspartame or any of those weird chemical sugars. It was relatively, now I find it really easy, and actually things, the biggest part was what made it easy was that you were doing the cooking though. So not everybody has that option of having a wife like Sue who cooks well and likes to cook and cooks all your meals. Because even on the times when I would cook, I would just sort of follow Sue's pattern of cooking. I used to cook with a lot of sweet sauces and add brown sugar to soy sauce and create some chicken something. And so that stuff wasn't in the house. And, that wasn't kind of on the menu for us to do. So if I'd been doing it by myself, it may have been a little harder. But since we had a partner to do it, and both of us were staying consistent on it. And then when we decided there were no cheat days, it's worked out okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how would you say keto compares to other ways you've lost weight or tried to get healthier?
Yeah. So it's been a lifelong process, this kind of going up and down in weight, or eating healthy than not eating healthy, and so other ways that I've tried to eat healthy and lost weight, got in better shape, was calorie counting, and other ways were just amp up my exercise. And so amping up my exercise, keto works much better than just amping up your exercise. Amping up your exercise actually doesn't work by itself. Changing my diet and calorie counting, that was actually relatively easy for me, just because you could just count the calories in, calories out. But I found that there weren't as many benefits as I'm getting from keto. With my body wasn't necessarily feeling better. I was just able to I had a little more stamina, but things like inflammation weren't going away. what was difficult, the counting of the calories was easy. However, the feeling like I was denying myself a lot of different foods that I liked was really hard. So I, you can just have like this much of like mayo or something in some dip, or or you can just, I don't know, or like at that time I was eating sandwiches. You couldn't have you kind of wouldn't eat cheese or things like that. And keto, a lot of the things that I loved and was denying myself, you're allowed to have those in keto. So I have to keep on like reminding myself, like, wow, I can have 2 eggs. I can put butter on that. What? So it actually makes it a lot easier, and it's so satisfying. It's actually really hard to overeat on keto because, we were saying the other day, one of our side dishes is rice, and always has been, but we eat cauliflower rice. And so it's like a vegetable. It's filling. And so it's hard to overeat on cauliflower rice. And, and if you want a second piece of chicken, that's fine because you're not counting calories. So, yeah, I found it really easy. It's super satisfying. And then when you add that you can put butter or different things on your food, that just makes it richer and even more filling, and then the snacks are amazing. I used to sort of limit, you can't have any nuts or, different things that we have for snacks now I couldn't have before. So, yeah, I think it's funny because this is like, now that I'm in it, I've been in it a while, we both lost a lot of weight, and now that we're just all in it, it's not hard at all. I find it really satisfying.
Yeah.
So cool.
And how difficult is it to stay off of carbs?
Carbs was the big one because, as I used to say, like, I never met a sandwich I didn't like, and that's absolutely true. And like my sister Robbie used to tell me all the time, like, you shouldn't be eating those carbs. And I'm like, why? Why? Why should I used to actually say the same thing about sugar? Like, why should I give up sugar? I'm not a diabetic. And so with carbs too, I was like, okay, the sandwich is in my calories. I can have this sandwich. And it was super hard for me to kind of wrap my head around, that I wasn't even like, I thought like grain, well, what about the 9-grain bread? You can do that, right? And so it was pretty hard, but just like the regular, sugar, adding it to things, or sugar, finding it in other foods, once I stopped, I was able to do it. Because my body was no longer craving it. It used to be like I'd have a sandwich and crave another sandwich, or, crave a sandwich every day, or, let's be real, multiple sandwiches, like I was craving a lot of bread because I was eating a lot of bread.
I've eaten a whole baguette in one sitting, no problem.
Right? I mean, I don't know, it seems like she's like, you're preaching to the choir, babe, Yeah, so for sure. But once I stopped eating bread, I was no longer craving bread. And so, yeah, just the longer you stay away from it, it's not in your house, you're not having cheat days, or you can have it sometimes. And yeah, it just worked out really well. And then Sue, because she is such an amazing cook, figured out like there's a lot of like yummy bread recipes, and a lot of them include cheese, which is another favorite thing. And so it's like, what? We can have pizza, and like the dough's made out of what? Cheese? Cool. Cheese and almond flour? That seems amazing. So and is amazing. And even like I like to tell friends, every time I mention some food, what I miss? Sue figures out how to cook it. Like I said, what I miss? I miss bagel dogs. And like the next week we had bagel dogs on the menu, and she figured out some lovely, cheese bread thing around dogs. Even that wasn't able to stay on keto and stay away from carbs, whatever. It's like you can have things like a sausage, whereas before that sort of thing felt like too many calories. You wouldn't have so much of a sausage or whatever, or you'd worry about it. And again, we're doing very, very clean ingredients, right? So, we don't have to worry about it from that end, and then also aren't worrying about it from the caloric end. So, I hate to just get up here and say like, it was easy. It's like once we were in the zone for it, we could do it, but then the longer you do it, the easier it is. And I'm always satisfied with what I eat. I'm like never like, oh my God, I'm leaving the table hungry. It's always so filling because it's protein rich and, and vegetable rich too. We do a lot of like as we said, cauliflower rice, do a lot of like, we do broccoli, we do like Brussels sprouts. So all like my favorite things, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mine too.
Yeah.
I love the cruciferous vegetables.
Mm-hmm. And those are so filling, right? So like between that and like a piece of chicken and, you know, and every once in a while we have like, we do sweet potatoes, which is, you know, technically you can do like a teeny bit. That's our little treat thing. Yeah, it's a good life. It's a good keto life we're living here.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Should I start asking you the questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your turn.
So Sue, how hard was it for you to quit sugar?
It was very, very hard for me to quit sugar, and it went in a couple of stages because I was diagnosed with very severe type 2 diabetes in May of 2019, and I read up on the latest research, and I got that I needed to try keto to get rid of my type 2 diabetes. So I did it, and it was really hard at the beginning, but I was really motivated because I didn't want to take insulin and start losing fingers and toes and stuff, you know?
Makes sense.
So I was like really serious, and I got rid of all the carbs in the house, like no bread, no rice, whatever, and just bought lots of the keto approved foods, you know? And at the beginning, my youngest son and I were doing it together, and gosh, you know, it's great to be young and male. He lost 60 pounds in 2 months.
Oh man.
Right?
Wow.
It took me significantly longer, but I think I lost 60 pounds, or 58 pounds in about a year. And was really doing well, maintaining that and building up my strength. I started to be more active and all of that. But I would always make exceptions for holidays, right? And I'd go buy the smallest bag of rice I could find and, like, you know, just minimal carby ingredients, because I didn't want to have to deal with it after the holiday was over. And really, most often I would cheat at restaurants because then, you know, the food wouldn't be in my house. But I always did find it difficult to get back on track with keto when I made exceptions. And then when we fell in love, then I found myself going off the rails quite a bit. It wasn't just like holidays. Like I said before, I thought love cured diabetes. So I was just eating whatever with you.
Right, we were going out on a lot of dates and restaurants and that sort of thing at first, yeah.
Yeah. And then like about a year and a half later, I had really severe type 2 diabetes again, because you don't get to just eat whatever you want once you've gone into remission. You actually have to maintain that. And so I was so grateful that you said, okay, you know, I'll do this with you, because I don't feel like it would have been sustainable for me to do it by myself while we're together.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and actually, I'll just interject at that time too, I'd gotten my results back from the doctor, and they were like, oh yeah, you know, you're fine. It's pre-diabetic, and it was just like maybe like a point higher than it was supposed to be. And if I'd been living alone and not with Sue, who'd already been through this journey, I would have maybe taken the doctor's advice and just went like, oh, don't worry about it. But she was like, yeah, no, that's a thing that you should deal with. So it seemed like it was really, not only, you know, you want it to be convenient, that if you're, you know, living together, you guys are kind of eating together and not sort of, you know, creating two different meal plans or something. You know, it really felt like, yeah, a health issue for me too. And within just a short amount of time, it was back below normal again. But I wouldn't have been able to get there, and probably by now I'd be at full blown. Who knows? You know, if I just ignored it the way they encourage you to, which is really weird. And I love my doctor, but yeah, that was really weird. Okay, so next question. How does keto compare to the other ways that you've tried to lose weight or get healthier in the past?
Well, like you, I did a lot of calorie counting, and that was painful for me. Like, I did it, and I think if you keep at that long enough, right, you stop being hungry because your stomach gets used to taking this much food every day. I remember a lot of months on a 1,200 calorie a day budget, and that's brutal. But I would have cheat days here and there that would make me feel better. And I discovered while I was doing calorie counting that no matter how much I ate in one day, I couldn't gain weight from just one day of binging. So that was relieving to be able to take a day off. But it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant to me to have to weigh and measure everything. And if I happened to go to a party where there was high calorie stuff that I had, I'd basically not be able to eat anything else. And I didn't like that feeling. Though I think that you can do the calorie counting without any kind of cooking skill. You can just count the calories and that's what you eat. Yeah. It's not the healthiest thing to eat this much of not necessarily nutritious food, but I mean, it is a little easier, I think, than keto, because the people I've known who've tried keto who don't like to cook, they had a much harder time. So now there's a lot more keto convenience food than there used to be.
Yeah, and I think actually knowing how to cook helps in any case. It helped me with the calorie counting because I'd make the yummiest food that I could for that amount of calories, right, that I'd really enjoy. And yeah, so the also the thing about like little amounts of food, just trying to discover like what foods are like high. We actually eat them now, shirataki noodles, like kind of low calorie but like high volume, so shirataki noodles were on my calorie counting regime too, because it's like you get like a big volume of food. So yeah. And then last question is, how difficult was it for you to quit carbs and stay off carbs?
Yeah, that was, to me, just as brutal as letting go of the sugar. Sugars are carbs too, but the rice and the bread, so sad to have to say goodbye to them. However, when you said, I can't do this and cheat, that made it a lot easier, because now the breads and the other starches aren't calling me, I feel like they're so addictive, and we need to get the word out, you guys. We need to get the word out. Carbs are addictive. It's ridiculous, like how they will call to you, know? And as soon as you eat them, you want more.
Yeah.
Doesn't even matter how full you are, Right. I remember sitting around the table at restaurants with my family, and back in the day, I don't know if they do it so much anymore, but they'd always bring a big basket of bread.
They used to, right?
Like warm bread with butter. And we knew that we just ordered like a huge meal, but we would be, gorging on that bread and then still eat our dinner. And then if there was any bread left, we'd be eating some more of the bread.
Yeah, isn't that odd, Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to stay away from them unless you give yourself a good long break and just tell yourself they're not an option anymore.
Yeah. And I used to not see the value or the point in it, really. As I say, why do I need to stay away from sugar? I'm not a diabetic, and also like, bread, it's like it's not causing me to gain weight. I was able to lose weight and still be able to have my sandwiches. But now that we're doing keto, I didn't realize all of the benefits. Like, my knees used to hurt, and that wasn't just because of the weight, it was because of like inflammation, and we do all the, strictly keto stuff with like the non-inflammatory oils and all that. There are like so many benefits to like not having the carbs that I wasn't aware of because I was eating the carbs. I just feel so much better now. So it's so that's good to know, that was good for me to discover.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been 3 questions.
Yeah. Yep. And if you have any questions, just put them in the comments below.
Bye-bye.
Bye.